Hello and welcome to the SandraV show. I am SandraV, and today I want to talk about the Disney Pixar movie Turning Red. I watched it with my kids the day it came out on Disney Plus, and they liked it. I got a lot of laughs, and I did kind of turn my head at one point and look at my kids like, should we be watching this? Fast forward a week, and I start seeing this, like, the internet's losing it over this movie, completely losing it. Parents everywhere are upset about it, and it's not for the reason I would have thought. So I'm going to talk about why people are upset. Tune to the end because I'm going to tell you what I thought people were going to be bothered by. So let's do it. So Turning Red is a coming of age tale of a 13-year-old Chinese Canadian girl who finds out that if she has big emotions, she turns into this super cute, fluffy red panda. And the reason that the plot alone is upsetting to people is because from the opening scene, she talks about how you want to honor your parents, but you also want to honor yourself. And so what ultimately happens in the movie is she goes against what her mom wants her to do in a lot of different ways. Normal 13-year-old girl ways, and then also giant fluffy red panda ways. That's one of the big issues, is she goes against her parents' wishes and against her family, and so she's not honoring her mom at that point. The reason that confuses me is this is not the first time that there's been a Disney movie or an animated children's movie where the main character goes against their parents' wishes. It's just not. I mean, the first one that popped into my head is this girl, the Little Mermaid. I mean, she runs off and becomes a human. You know, like, that's like big. And then that resulted in her losing her voice and eventually marrying a man when she's 16 years old. Like, that's from back in the day. And nobody talks about that in a way where she was defying her father. So it's a bad influence on kids. And then even you think of Luca, which is a more recent one, where he is also a sea creature who goes to land. I did not realize how similar that is to the Little Mermaid. But anyway, same thing. His parents are like, you never go up there. Like, you just don't. And he does it. Moana went and sailed across the seas. And her father did not want her to. So this is not the first time there's been a story about a young girl or boy who has gone against their parents' wishes. So I'm a little confused to why that is such a big deal. And this one in particular, stereotypes come from somewhere, right? And it is known in even the Asian communities that their parents have very high expectations of them. It can be very hard on them as far as like academics and career and things like that. So that was depicting this part of that culture. And the thing about parenting is, yes, of course you want to have rules and you want to instill ethics in your kids, but you have to find a balance of letting them be who they are and who they're going to be and keeping them safe and instilling good values in them. And what happened in this story is, you know, her mom couldn't believe that her daughter, who she raised right, liked a certain type of music and would like boys. And, you know, she's 13. The next issue that people have with it is the fact that she's kind of boy crazy, and her friends are... Okay, I got a lot of laughs in this movie. And one of the reasons is because the way that they depict these young girls and how they are with the boy band that they're obsessed with, it was like so reminiscent of my NSYNC days that it almost felt like a spoof. Like, it felt spoofy because the girls were just so ridiculous, but like, it's reality, right? There was this store clerk that she had a crush on and she made all these embarrassing drawings of, and her mom publicly humiliates her. Like, here's my thing. The way that the mother acted is, in my opinion, inappropriate. You know, she publicly humiliates her child. You don't want to do that. She doesn't listen to her when she's trying to tell her who she is, what she feels. And the daughter is too scared to really open up in that way to tell her mom fully how she feels or what she likes. She can't even share with her mother what type of music she likes because her mother deems it inappropriate. So the lesson in the movie, I felt, was very much more for parents than it was for kids. It was more about letting your kids feel comfortable enough to be who they are, because regardless of if you want to try to control that or suppress it, come on, think of anybody you know who had a controlling parent. They were doing stuff behind their parents' back. It always backfires. It makes people want to rebel. And so I feel like personally a big lesson in it was actually for parents, and it completely went over their head because they're too controlling and too opinionated about who and what their children should be. And so I found that very interesting. Now, when she first turns into the red panda, she's hiding from her mom because she doesn't know that her parents know that this is going to happen to her because they never had that open conversation. And that's going to be my next point. So her mom thinks it's her period, and her mom's like, oh my gosh, I wasn't prepared. I didn't think this would happen. So her mom starts talking about pads and menstrual cramps and all these things. And parents were very uncomfortable that this was being brought up in a movie. She's 13. It is normal for a 13-year-old to experience that. I started my period right before I turned 10. So by 13, I had years of horrible womanhood. So it's just like that conversation is going to happen. What a lot of people say is it's not Disney's business to teach my child that. No, it's not, but they're not. It really was brought up like, I would say maybe 20 total minutes of the movie have anything to do with the period, right? And so it was brought up. If your child actually caught on to that, mine didn't. They're ages 6, 4, and 4. So it just right over their head. Never asked me a question about it. But at the same time, it's not that uncomfortable for me because, listen, moms are so quick to share TikTok videos and memes about how they get no privacy in the bathroom. And they just, it's funny. It's funny to joke about. But if your kids don't know that you bleed once a month, then you get privacy in the bathroom, because my kids do. I mean, it's come up several times with my kids already because I don't get alone time. They come and they find me and they're in the bathroom, and I have to do that. So I could see if that hasn't come up with your kids, maybe being uncomfortable to talk about. People also felt like, oh, well, boys are watching this. Well, yeah, boys should know that girls have periods. Like, this is real life, like things are going to come up, whether it be at school with friends, whether it be out at the park, whether it be in a movie or a video game or a song or whatever. Topics are going to come up that you haven't talked to your children about. And that's kind of just how it works, like there's no date on the schedule where you're like, oh, I'm going to talk about periods on this day. No, it comes up, your kids ask questions, you have to figure it out from there. And I think that just made people feel very uncomfortable. And so if that's the case, like, turn it off, don't show it to your kids. But I don't think it's a reason to like drag the movie through the mud. Another thing, I think I skipped over a little bit the whole boy crazy thing. 13-year-old girls like boys. They do. By that time, my daughter in preschool had her first crush. And I know this because she started kindergarten. And I mentioned, I don't remember, their brothers, and I know their mom. It's either Aiden or Eli. One of them, I mentioned that I invited their family to her birthday party. And she was like, and I was like, oh, it was so cute. She couldn't help but smile because she had a little crush on him. Like, and she's 6. She was turning 6. So if a 6-year-old has a crush, a 13-year-old has a crush. And it's normal and it's healthy. And it's just where we develop that part of our lives. And if you have an open communication with your kids about it, it's going to be less uncomfortable for you, less uncomfortable for them. And maybe they'll be more apt to ask you questions about it, which is important. Communication, so important. There were some phrases and some words that were used that made people uncomfortable. One of her little friends, when they wanted to go to their 4-town boy band concert, they all asked their parents, and all their parents basically said no. And one of them said, my parents said it's stripper music. What's wrong with that? And so I guess the fact that she was like, what's wrong with that? I guess I could see people being bothered by that. my kids don't know what strippers are. I don't know if I necessarily want them to, in the sense that I don't want to have that conversation. But eventually my kids are going to know that there are men and women out there who take off their clothes and they do it in a very rhythmic way and they get paid for it. Like that's just gonna happen. It's gonna be brought up. And I think the thing about that I'm so confused about is when I watch these kids movies, the things that are not age appropriate, my kids don't even catch on to it. They don't have questions because they just like don't understand that, and they just move on with the rest of the movie. If your child is understanding those words or having an interest in knowing more, they're probably age appropriate to know that, in my mind. That's just my opinion. That is my humble opinion. Oh, gyrating. I'm sorry, but I don't know if I necessarily ever saw these 13-year-olds gyrating while they were dancing to a boy band whose lyrics actually have the word tummy in it. Like, it's innocent. I think this movie is innocent. And so when her mom turns into a red panda, and her mom is like, "This isn't you." And she loses it. She finally breaks and she says, "This is me, Mom." I'm going to butcher it. I'm bad with movie lines, but she's like, "I love loud music. I like boys. And I love gyrating." And she is this cute little, because her mom's like this ginormous, like Godzilla size red panda. And she's like a cute little, like normal bear size red panda. And so she starts like shaking her little panda butt in her mom's face. And she's like, "I like gyrating. Is this bothering you?" And people were so upset that the red panda, a fictional, fluffy, cute little character, was shaking its butt at its mom. It wasn't, maybe I could see if it was the actual like animated girl, but it was the red panda butt with its fluffy tail in the air. Like, how is that bad? I don't know. Gyrating, is that even a word anymore? Like, I feel like gyrating is what they used to say, and now we call it twerking. So like, she was basically twerking at her mom. I'm sorry, I find it funny. I find this whole thing funny. But it's true. She wants to shake her butt to some Town. That is not a bad thing. I'm trying to find this thing that I had pulled up. So the part of the movie that I kind of looked at my kids like, "Oh, what's going on here?" The first time we watched it is, you have to watch the movie. Seriously, watch it for yourself. I want to know what you think of it. Red Panda is a gift from an ancestor, and they can do like almost like a seance type thing to help you disconnect from your red panda, and then you don't transition into it anymore when you get real emotional. It is literally like a seance, and they are chanting, and they do it under a red moon. And then she's literally, this is the part that I kind of looked at my kids, she's like up in the air, and she's just like, there's lights coming out of her, and her body is kind of jerking around. And I'm like, this looks like an exorcism. Like, I don't know how my kids are interpreting this or what's going on, but whatever. It was such a short part, and I didn't make a big deal about it. But I did think when people said that there was controversy around this movie, I thought that's what it was going to be, and it was the gyrating instead. So this director, is it director? Yeah, Sean O'Connell. He made a statement on Twitter, and it just came off like really racist, like really racist. So he said, "Some Pixar films are made for a universal audience. The target audience for this one feels very specific and very narrow. If you are in it, this might work well for you. I am not in it. This was exhausting." I believe that might just be part of it, because I thought he had said something about it felt like the creator was actually making this for his like his own community. And it comes up very racist because Mr. O'Connell, people of color have had to have movies and cartoons and television shows all centered around white characters. And we've been able to relate in a way, you know? And I feel like the only difference here is this is a Chinese family, and he can't relate. He just can't. I guess if I want to give him a little grace, I can say, you know, maybe he doesn't have any daughters. So the concept of of a young girl, he can't. No, I don't think so. I really think because he said something about it being their community, and like he was making this movie for like his family and his friends, I feel like he means because they're Chinese. Why does it matter? Like, of course you don't relate to a young girl going through puberty and liking boys and wanting to go see a boy band. Of course you don't. But I just wonder if he would have said that if she was a little white character. You know, I don't know. I can't speculate. I shouldn't speculate. I should say I can, but I shouldn't. But it just felt like it was rooted in a little bit of racism. Cultures being whitewashed in film is really coming to an end, and they're making things that our kids and we can relate to, you know. So I don't really understand what he was talking about, especially because a lot of Pixar movies are like toys and robots and all these other things. It's like, can you relate to a robot but you can't relate to a little Chinese girl? Like, I don't know. Anyways, that just needed to be mentioned because that was kind of an interesting comment that was made. All in all, I think that, like everything, this is being turned into something it doesn't have to be. I think it's being made into a bigger deal than necessary. If it doesn't align with your values and your morals, and you feel like it is going to damage your child, then I guess don't watch it. I don't know. But to put it down in the way that people have is unnecessary and kind of weird, because I don't feel like this movie went to a place that other movies necessarily haven't. You know, there have been other coming of age cartoons and talking about emotions and changes in your body. I mean, look at Inside Out, you know. I mean, it's not a new concept, but if you watched this whole video and you're interested in seeing it and you haven't, and you want to watch it with your kids, Sandra approved. I liked it. There were so many things in it that just cracked me up and made me laugh. So I don't know. That's just my thought. Give me your thoughts. I really want to know. Have you seen it? Have your kids seen it? How do you feel about it? How do you feel about the critiques that it's getting? A lot of people, I think, are going off hearsay too, which don't do that. You know, there was a mom in a Facebook group that was like, well, I heard that it mentioned strippers and gyrating. Okay, that sounds bad. So I kind of broke it down to her, like, you know, a little explanation of the scene. She's like, oh, that's not as bad as I thought it was. Yes, don't go off a snippet off the internet. Watch the movie. It's cute. It's funny. My favorite part, if you've seen it, is when Mei Mei sees how big her mom is as the panda, and she says something to the dad, and he goes, I told you she was big. I literally die every time. But that's just my thoughts. So I hope you guys are having a wonderful week. And I hope if you like this video and content like this, you're going to like this video. You're going to subscribe to my channel so you can come back and hang out with me, because together is a beautiful place to be.